Nithya Ramachandra from the NR Hour Sports Show. This is episode 1007. I am joined by a really special guest. His name is Bobby Carpenter. He's a former Ohio State NFL linebacker. He played for my favorite team, the Dallas Cowboys. How about them Cowboys? Let's go. But I got him on good timing. It's NFL draft week. I'm really excited for this week. And first of all, fans, please tune in on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Spotify. We are live on all of those podcast platforms. And if our fans can ask questions to Bobby Carpenter on the Spreaker app. And not only he was a great player, now he's doing big things off the field. He has his own show called Carps Corner. He's been on other shows, and today he was on the Pat McAfee show, which is one of the best shows out there right now. But first of all, Bobby, thank you for joining this show tonight. And first of all, how are you and your family doing today?
Oh, we're good. Family's good. Just busy. We've got a lot of stuff going on with spring sports, so it's tough. I've got 4 kids.
Wow.
So AJ's on Pat McAfee. Our kids play together, a lot of different sports, and it's a lot going on. So it's tough to find time to be able to do some great things like this. But it was draft week, and had some moments tonight. Some practices got canceled, so thankfully there was a little bit of a window here, and happy to be on.
Yeah, thank you. We've been discussing this for a while, and we finally made this happen. And Bobby, tell our fans, obviously, since the draft week, why not start off? Take us back to your draft experience. Obviously, you got drafted by the Dallas Cowboys, historic franchise. So what was it like when you got drafted back in the day and being with your family on that day?
Yeah, back in the day, it's a long time ago. Heck, it's 16 years now that happened. And, talking to AJ, reminiscing about those times. And that was back. It was Saturday, Sunday affair then. Now it's obviously shifted to the Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And it's probably for the better. I love having the first round, how it's set up right now. With the second and third following Friday and then the final 4 on Sunday. But, it was kind of a nervous Friday night, and they didn't used to invite a ton of guys to the draft back then. I was not invited. Don't think that I probably would have went even if I was. I looked at the draft as, kind of a little bit of a pseudo graduation party. I thought there's a pretty good likelihood that I was going to go in the first round. And so we had, a lot of friends, a lot of family over. Some of my former, my current teammates in college, who weren't draft eligible yet. Some of my high school teammates, my dad was a high school coach, their whole coaching staff, and my brothers, my youth coaches, and, there's probably 150 people, my parents just sitting around waiting. And it's a nerve-wracking day. What can I say? But everybody had a lot of fun. We had some drinks, we had a lot of food. Thankfully we didn't have to wait too terribly long. I believe I was the 18th pick, and I think I was drafted around 345, 350-ish. So, they used to drag on forever. We were almost 4 hours in and, barely halfway through at that point. But it was definitely a remarkable day and emotion filled. And then that was the point where, one chapter closed and then the work began.
Yeah. So not only, obviously, before going to the Cowboys, you got to play with the historic college in Ohio State, and you were born in Lancaster, Ohio. So what was that like for you, just to stay close to home, go to Ohio State, and a lot of legacy over there, and playing in front of your family, friends? And like I said, a lot of historic players played there, and obviously RIP to the late Dwayne Haskins. He went there. So a lot of historic players. So for you, what was that like, just being close to home?
Yeah, it was good. So my dad played when I was younger. He played for Houston, the Giants, and then his last year was with the Rams for about a decade. So I was born in Houston. Both my parents are from Lancaster, and then they moved back when I was about 4 to 5 years old after he got done playing. And it was great. I didn't necessarily think about it as, Ohio State was the be all end all when I was coming out of school. Obviously, I had a ton of great players. They just hired Coach Tressel my senior year. And, he's coming from Youngstown State. It was a little bit smaller program. Wasn't really sure, how that would translate. My dad knew a lot of guys who were coaching in college just from his days of playing in the NFL. And a lot of his former teammates and coaches were still out there and coaching. So we had a lot of different options, a lot of people that we knew. What it basically came down to, we had a great recruiting class. And, from Maurice Clarett, Antonio Holmes, Nick Mangold, AJ Hawk, just, a lot Dante Whitner. Well, I guess he was a year behind me. We had really a very special class. It was rated pretty high in the early days, I guess, of the internet rankings, and a bunch of good dudes who really all got along really well together. And I thought, this is it's a pretty special group of guys. And if I'm fortunate enough to kind of play and contribute, we can maybe do some really great things. And We won the national championship our freshman year. Won another Big Ten title my senior year. We're close a couple other times. And you just got to play with so many great players, but it really came down to that. And then, close to home was a function of, I wanted to be able to watch my brothers play sports. I'm the oldest of four. And so they were, playing. My dad was still coaching. And so I wanted to be able to get back on a bye week or get out of practice on a Thursday night and go watch my brother play a freshman game or something like that when they were near Columbus. So that was a big piece of it. And then, like I said, the fact that it was Ohio State, we had a great recruiting class, was the other massive piece.
Yeah. So what was it like being part of a football family, living that legacy too? Obviously, after your father playing and coaching and your brothers play football. So what was it like living that legacy on and being a football family?
It's I guess when that's what you don't really know anything else. So, it's probably unique. My kids get a little experience of it now. I try to impress upon my wife, with that, where it's, I walked by the picture of my dad in our high school every day. He's right up there outside the cafeteria between the gym and the auditorium and everything. And they had a number of guys who had played in the NFL, but he had a 10-year career, was probably the most prominent. So I joked, like, it was a long shadow that was cast down on me with that, but I kind of embraced it. So I try to tell my wife, like, our kids, right, wrong, or indifferent. And, I talked to a lot of my former teammates about this, what they're dealing with their kids. And mine's a little bit unique because I also dealt with it, as a child, where my dad never pushed me into football. Frankly, he didn't let me play till I was 13. I played soccer until that point. And so it was something getting to play a lot of different sports. My mom was a swim coach. I played a lot of basketball. But, he's like, I knew when you'd be ready. If you still wanted to do it, that'd be the time. And so many people get caught up now, like, got to get my kid into football, got to get him to this, that. It's like, you know what? Have them just play athletics. They'll figure that thing out on their own. Just do athletic movements, whatever it is. Sports, there's a lot of transition there. And there is skill development, but he's like, I figured you'd be good. So he kind of tried to push away. And so I let my boys play probably earlier than I should. They pressure me a lot. It's what they want to do, but I make them play other things as well, just so you never get burned out on one thing and you develop other skills, whether it's freaking tennis, golf, basketball, track. I mean, you pick the sport. My kids play lacrosse. I didn't know anything about lacrosse. I never played it. So, I'm like, man, this is good stuff. You guys are running around, little hand-eye coordination there. Like, I'm all for it. So that's kind of like the sports family grew up in and kind of how my dad managed a lot of that.
Yeah, like in this generation, it's really important for kids to play multiple sports before they choose that one sport they want to play. And that's good that your kids are versatile and they play multiple sports. And we are live with former Ohio State NFL linebacker Bobby Carpenter. We already have a fan question for you. Someone wants to know, what was it like having the long hair back in the day?
The long hair back in the day, man. It's a great question. It's obviously short now. I had it long for about 10 years. Got it cut, started growing it after the end of my sophomore year, right after I started dating my girlfriend at the time, now wife. And, I grew it in honor of Pat Tillman. It was awesome. I loved it. And finally, when I got done playing, I had it for a couple more months. And I was like, I'm going to start going to grad schools, doing interviews and these different things. It's like, it's probably about time to tighten it up. So I cut it off. It was a great run. I really enjoyed it. It's a lot of fun, but it's at some point in time, you got to look respectable when you walk around in public.
Yeah. So tell our fans some of your best moments at Ohio State as a player. And they have a great fan base in Ohio State. Obviously, they always compete. You won a BCS national championship in 2002 too, also. So what was that like? Take us to that season and playing in front of those fans.
Yeah, it was pretty tremendous. I mean, Ohio State has an unbelievable fan base. That was the first championship they'd won since 68. And, they won another one subsequently in 14 when Urban got here. My brother was actually on that staff. So it's been pretty special to kind of see this program here the last 20 years. And you get there when you're a freshman, you don't know anything about anything. And all I knew is we're winning all our games and they're close. And I'm complaining to my dad why I'm not playing more. And he's just sitting, hey, you're playing plenty. One of the best defenses in the country. Last thing they're going to do is put you out there and let you screw up a game, and the seniors will be all over the coaches. So when they put you in for your 8 to 12 plays a game on defense, make your tackles, be where you're supposed to be, and kind of go through it all. But it was a surreal moment watching us win some of those games the way we did. It was dramatic fashion. We weren't probably I'll say it, we weren't the best team in college football that year. We just happened to be the best when it ultimately mattered the most. And sometimes you got to get some breaks. And in my 4 seasons at Ohio State, that was probably the third best team I was on. The next year we were better. You know, in my senior year, I think we were clearly better. And sometimes it just, you got to get the breaks, and it has to work out for you that way. And thankfully it did that year, and catapulted us to a national championship. And it's our 20-year reunion. I'm talking to Mike Doss today, who was our captain, a 3-time All-American there, safety, and about what to plan and how to do it. And they're like asking, he's asking me stuff. I'm like, dude, you're the senior on that team. You're the captain. Like, you guys playing this stuff up. The freshmen, yeah, we contributed, but we were along for the ride. This is your show. So I think we're going to do something around the Notre Dame game, for Ohio State in honor. But it makes you feel real old when it was 20 years ago that you won that national title.
Well, yeah. So speaking of now being a former Ohio State Buckeye, what do you like about this team now with Ryan Day as head coach? What a heck of a coach he is. And obviously you got next year you got CJ Stroud. And this year's draft, you got 2 receivers in there, and then Master Teague, a running back, which everybody needs to know about. I had him on the show 2 months ago, and he was an honor to talk to. But what do you like about the future of Ohio State and this year's draft prospects?
I love Chris, and Garrett. I've got to know those guys both really well. Tremendous young men, first of all. And that's I think key, because you watch their development. Guys who work hard, that are grinders, that are good dudes, they get better. And those guys all got better in school. They've refined their craft. They've got a great receiver coach in Brian Hartline, who was a teammate of mine here, played 8 years in the league. And, it shows. Those guys are all polished receivers. And, every receivers coach that comes and watches them just sings the praises of how technically sound they are. They're great athletes, and they're high quality kids, but they're also very sound in what they do. So I'm working through a mock draft right now. First time I've ever done like a full 32 pick deal myself. And it's a lot going into it, a lot going on it. But it's been fun, but just seeing where those guys go will be great. Master Teague, another great human being, man. His dad is awesome. He's a very physically gifted guy. I think he's going to play in the NFL for a while, because he's a grinder. He works really hard. He's physically really gifted. He has some limitations like everybody does. But I look at him and this is a guy you want on your roster. He's going to be able to play special teams for you. He's a big physical short yardage running back, and there's a role for those guys if they're selfless and willing to work at it. And that's kind of exactly what he is. And, with Ryan Day, that's the guys that they recruit and they bring in. So I'm really excited, very bullish about the future for the Buckeyes with everything that they've done, because it starts at the top with your head coach. And when you got a guy like Ryan Day, who's as gifted and really compassionate as he is as well, his ability to connect to players, you have something pretty special.
Maybe LeBron could play receiver there now too.
Exactly.
But I watched something interesting on NFL Network. I was watching NFL Network, and they said the 2 colleges that produce the best receivers is Alabama and Ohio State. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. Alabama's done a great job. I mean, their results over the last, from Julio Jones kind of on, has really been impeccable. Judy and all the guys they've cranked out, Mari Cooper. I mean, they've done a fantastic job. Jameson Williams is going to be great. And he kind of got the best of both, started at Ohio State, finished up at Bama, and they recruit guys and they really grind on them. The thing is, the receiver position, it's, people always talk about being a diva position, but it's only a diva position because people let it become that. And if you are firm with your guys, you recruit guys who are willing to work and saying, hey, you're going to learn how to block, man. Like, you're just not going to sit there and cry about not getting the ball and cry about you were running this, you're not playing here. No, you're going to get on special teams. You're going to teach you how to block, and you're going to run routes and do things the right way, because if not, we're doing you a disservice. And so Brian's done a great job teaching that. Nick does the same thing at Alabama. They hold those guys to high standards and expectations. And to get on the soapbox for a minute, I mean, that's largely the problem with a lot of issues in society today, and especially in sports, is we don't hold people to the standards that they need to be held to. We have lowered our expectations so much that, people will always meet them. And if you're going to raise them up, people will elevate their play. They'll elevate themselves as humans when you ask them to do that. But if you're going to keep it down low, that's what you're going to get. And so they don't do that. They expect you to go be a dude. And if you don't want to be that, all right, man, well, you can go transfer and go play somewhere else.
Wow. Yeah, so we have another fan question for you. They want to know, what was the draft call like with Jerry Jones?
That was great. It's something I was down there with my parents. My dad's birthday turned 67 on Wednesday. So I went back and, I don't get a chance to see him as much as I would like to. And they don't live far from me. I mean, probably about 40 minutes. And I got kids sports and a lot of things going on, but I was sitting on the back deck and I ended up doing a call with NFL radio, Rat Lewis, who's a good friend. We work a lot together. And he was asking about that same question. I literally go, I'm sitting here on my parents' back deck where I remember vividly like walking outside to take this call and looking at a million sets of eyes. I mean, probably about 50, 60 sets of eyes, as many as I could see, just locking in to see is this the real deal? It was Jerry Jones on the other end of that line. I mean, he is an awesome dude. He's a tremendous owner. He's a great marketer. And then him handing the phone off to Bill Parcells, it was really a dream come true. And it's still, I could vividly imagine that on a hot, I guess it would have been April afternoon at that point in time. And it was a pretty surreal feeling.
Yeah. And obviously my father brought me up as a Cowboy fan, so I believe blue and silver till I die. And what a great franchise that you played with. And speaking of coaching, you got to obviously learn from Bill Parcells and also Bill Belichick when he went to the Patriots. So what was that like, learning from two historic coaches, Hall of Fame coaches, and Bill Belichick and Bill Parcells?
It was pretty great, and it was very unique as well because my dad was on the Giants when Bill became the head coach, and Belichick was there as a linebacker, special teams coach, and a linebackers coach, and getting a chance to play for guys who were legendary coaches who my dad also played for, and Bill Parcells, I'd always kind of dreamed of playing for him. I always wanted to. I knew how tough of a coach he was, and I knew how he would get the best out of his players. And so Parcells does a great job with the motivational aspect of it and being able to connect to people and understanding exactly what it takes to get the most out of their guys and knowing that every guy is a little bit different and teaching you how to be a pro. And then Bill Belichick, on the other hand, is probably one of the best football minds I've ever been around. There might not be a better football mind than Bill Belichick when it comes to understanding offense, defense, special teams, how the game works together. The guy is truly amazing. And so when you kind of pair those things up, you buddy him up, it's like, man, I got a chance to play for two of the finest head coaches to ever coach the game. Bill Belichick obviously won 6 Super Bowls, has been to 2 others. Bill Parcells won 2 with the Giants, took the Patriots to a Super Bowl, had the Jets on the doorstep, won the AFC Championship, and then built a Cowboys team, that was really there, with Wade Phillips, that he was able to take to, 13-3 the next year and a #1 seed. Like, Bill Parcells knows how to identify talent. He knows how to build teams that work well together and get the most out of his guys. And it's truly impressive, his ability to do that. And so to kind of get to see both sides of that was phenomenal. I pull a lot of that stuff out from my life when I'm coaching and when I'm trying to do stuff, in the business world about how to build teams and put things together.
Well, yeah. So we have we have another fan question for you. They want to know, what was it like playing with DeMarcus Ware and Tom Brady?
D Ware is one of the most talented guys I've ever been around physically. Just and an unbelievable human too. It's came in right after him. We actually have birthdays on back-to-back days.
Wow.
And it's he couldn't be a more gracious all-star. And I got jerseys signed of all the guys who I played with who I thought would be Hall of Famers. I'm like, dude, DeMarcus, I'm getting a jersey from you. This is for me personally. It'll be framed and hanging in my basement. And I was like, it's a pleasure to play with you. And he just played through so many injuries. He got so beat up at the end of his career. And I was so incredibly happy to see him win a Super Bowl, just knowing, how many years he agonized and tried to get it done in Dallas. It was just happy for him, to be able to do that and to see that happen. And then Tom Brady, it was without a doubt the best quarterback to have ever played the game. And I'll tell this quick story about him. I'd known him, he's a Michigan guy. Mike Vrabel's a good friend, played up there with him. And, I get up there on my 7th year, some, vet, I'd played against Tom a couple times. I get signed. It's, the first week of off season the program. I come in, I sit down in my locker, and Tom Brady literally comes up and walks to me, and this is 2012. I think he'd still only won 3 at Super Bowls at this point.
Hmm.
And like looks me dead in the eyes, like, Bobby, Tom Brady, nice to meet you. Mike Vrabel's told me a lot about you. We're excited for the things you can do in our coverage, our third down, and this and that. And goes into all this. And I literally look over at Gerard Mayo and like, is this dude joking? Like, he doesn't even need to know who I am. And why the heck is he introducing himself first and last name to me as if I don't know who he is? And I'm like, Tom, I'm like, is this a joke? He's, no, man, we're just really excited. I'm like, you're like the biggest dork I've ever seen, but he is just so sincerely nice and such a great teammate that, that's what separates him. And people want to hate him. I'm like, you want to hate him until you honestly realize like how good of a dude he is and how you never hear teammates really speak poorly of him. Cause he literally tries his best, despite the fact he's, the richest dude on the team. He's got the supermodel wife. He's, now undisputedly the GOAT. And the dude just really tries to be one of the guys. And it's incredibly impressive when you see now he was in his mid 30s then, late 30s. He's 45 now. He's playing, trying to connect to dudes that could be his kid.
Yeah.
And he still puts forth that effort. I guarantee it. So that's what makes him so special.
It's good to see him back too in the league after 40 days of retirement. And now I think he has a chance to win another Super Bowl here with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's gonna be interesting to see what happens. And speaking of the the Buccaneers, what are your thoughts on him coming back? And are you surprised that he came back, or did you expect this?
Well, I'd heard him talk, and it sounded like he's kind of was contemplating retirement at the last season. But when you lose a game the way he lost it, I think it hurt him. And he came back. They were just a little short against the Rams, almost just kind of ran out of time. And so it's tough to go out when you still feel like you have something left. And Tom, I don't think he wants to be the guy who's literally just limping through a season. But man, the guy you could argue had maybe his best season ever as a pro. And so if like you can put the team around me, I love Todd Bowles as a coach. He was on our staff in Dallas. He honestly might be better for Tom, than even Bruce Arians, given the fact like he has a lot more Belichick of the way he runs things, just due to the fact, they're both in that Parcells tree and how they handle stuff. That you've got the players, you've got the coaches. The NFC is much more winnable than the AFC. I think he probably is like, hey, let's go make another run. Like once you're done, you're done. So I think this is probably his farewell tour, and he's going to try to treat it as such because he's a guy that's so in the moment. Mm-hmm. He never really steps back. So I think he probably wants one last year of reflection to kind of bring his family around and not sell it short, but just to make sure that he soaks it in kind of one last time. Because once you hang him up, like you hang him up for good.
Yeah. So we have another fan question. Someone wants to know how do they match Pat McAfee's energy?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I mean, Pat brings it every day, man. I try to get on there and get juiced up for him. Pat, I got a chance to meet him last year, hanging out at an event at AJ's house. Pat's he's a great dude. He comes across as kind of a character, but like he's really an unbelievable person. Got a great staff. His team, they all love him because he just sincerely wants to take care of people and be a good human. So, that energy, I just think that's him, man. Like he's always on. He's animated. He's funny. It's amazing what he's built and done it all, really himself and, just working and grinding. So, I mean, I know he's an inspiration to a lot of people. And I have the utmost respect for him based upon what he's been able to do in his life.
Yeah. And for you, tell our fans about some of your best moments as an NFL player throughout your career.
Well, I mean, this might come as, a sad deal to you. Mm-hmm. It was probably with the Lions and in Cowboys Stadium when I had my pick six on my guy Romo, and it was tough. It's surrounding like kind of that whole story, that game. We're coming back, and you always want to play well when you get back to a team that moved on from you for whatever. And I don't hold any animosity with Dallas with that. I love my 4 years there, and I had great friends on the team. Romo and Witten are great buddies. And a lot of other guys that I played with, DeMarcus, we had a great crew of dudes. And, go back there. My wife came down. She was staying with Tony and his family. She's in the box with, Tony's wife and, Jason's wife, their families. And they're all getting along. And it's 24-3. And I get the interception, run it back. And, they're like, kind of like, well, if that had to happen, at least it's Bobby. We're still down 14 points. Well, then we ultimately come back and win the game. And,
Wow.
like everybody just wanted to bash Romo the next day. I'm like, man, like and he's finally gotten like the credit he deserves. Like this guy, I played with Tom Brady. I played with Matt Stafford. I'm telling you, like these guys are all on a fairly level playing field. Sure, Tom's won 7 Super Bowls. I'm telling you, Tony Romo kept us in more games that we would have never had a shot to be in than any other quarterback that I know. And so, it hurt me to kind of see the abuse that he took from that, because I know how good of a guy he is. He's a great teammate. He wants to be one of the dudes. Like, heck, he's an undrafted free agent from Eastern Illinois. I mean, like, he had no expectation of being this when he came in, and he's worked his tail off to become that. So that was probably my best game. I love my, we won, and I'll say this: one of the other great moments that we had was the first playoff victory in, what was it, 2009. It's the first one they had since Emmitt Smith was down there. It's the new stadium. Been, I think, 98, when Aikman was quarterback. And we played the Eagles three times that season, played them back-to-back. And Michael Vick starting for the Eagles. I recovered 2 fumbles in that game. It was just a great feeling to kind of be a part of something where you're like kind of, kicking off that curse that was there for so long, and to be a part of something that's special in that new stadium and against a team like the Eagles, a pretty bitter rival, playing them like back-to-back weeks, week 17 in the playoffs. It was pretty sweet. So those are probably my 2 favorite moments, my NFL career, just kind of pulling them in on some big victories.
Yeah, we loved you in Dallas, man. You had a great career in Dallas, and we were happy to have you in Dallas too. And for you, I got to ask you about, speaking of Matthew Stafford. We have a fan question. They want to know, what was it like playing with him and seeing him win a Super Bowl finally?
It's amazing with Matt, and he always kind of wanted to be, not kind of want to be. He's from Dallas, so I think he looked up to Romo. When he was playing, he would ask me a lot about Tony. And so he was a really young player when I got there, I think his second year. And so we became, good buddies, and he was kind of talking through that. He was hurt early in his career. And I kept telling people, like, this guy has the best of the 3 guys I talked about. Like, they have great arms. Stafford has the best arm of anybody I ever played with. And I'm like, he's got all, and he was, the knock for being injured and then couldn't win the big one. And it was the same thing kind of with Romo. I'm like, I watched Matthew keep Detroit in games that we had no business being in. I watched him do it after I left. And I go, you'll see when he is gone how good he actually is. And so to put him there with the Rams, like, he's a great dude. I've been fortunate, man. I keep saying this. Like, I played with some unbelievable guys who are also great players. And that has been something that's been very, very beneficial. But, man, I wouldn't surprise me if Matt Stafford wins another Super Bowl. Like, he has Hall of Fame talent. His wife, Kelly, is phenomenal, and he's a great leader. And you saw that happen this year, when they were able to do some great things. And, the play, I'm trying to think, gosh, who it was against? He throws the deep ball to Cooper Kupp, finishes off one of those games in the playoffs. I'm like, man, like, it's a big throw, Matthew. Like, I couldn't be happier for a guy, and there's no one who deserves it more.
Yeah. Before we get to the last 2 things, I know you have to hop off soon, and I want to talk about this linebacker prospect. And obviously, this is a heavy defensive draft, but I want to talk about the linebacker. Since you're a linebacker, we got Devin Lloyd, Nakobe Dean, Chad Moma, Leo Chanel, Kawhi Walker, Quinston Harris, and I want to get to Troy Anderson from Montana State. What do you like about him?
I like him.
What are your thoughts on him? Does he remind you of yourself?
He's a good player. Hopefully, he's better than me. But he's a guy who played quarterback.
Yeah.
They flip him over to linebacker, and he's all conference quarterback. I think player of the year, and then he's an all conference linebacker. Dude can fly. He's a 4.4 guy. He's 6'4", like 238. Then he can be a 4-down player, and he's an offensive guy. So that means he has great ball skills. And to be able to play now in the NFL, as a linebacker, you're gonna be able to cover tight ends and running backs. You have to have great ball skills, and I think he has those. And I think someone's probably going to get a steal with him. I don't know when he's going to get drafted, but I feel like he's a guy that if you took in the end of the first, the mid-second round, you'd be happy with it. And someone's probably going to get him in the third and think, man, like, this dude checks all the boxes, and we're really lucky to get him.
And what do you think Dallas does at 24?
Goodness, goodness gracious. Depending on it's because when you're that deep, man, you have to model that so carefully because it just depends who's going to be available. I don't really see them trading up. There might be a handful of guys in this draft, but I think there's still will be enough talent where they're taking. You could always look at, do you go with an offensive line? The offensive line was so good for so long. They're starting to get older, seeing some retirement, guys leaving via free agency. Um, Tyron Smith is just he's been a warrior for so long. Like he's played through injuries and all this stuff. And you just have to wonder, like, is it time to maybe retool that? If there's one of the tackles falls, I think you maybe go there. Jerry loves, it's a deep wide receiver draft. If there's, one of those guys slides, if you have a Chris Olave or someone like that there, do you, Drake London, depending on like how this thing, Traylon Burke, depending on how it kind of breaks, maybe there could be a receiver there. Those would kind of be the two areas. And then if a pass rusher, I'm trying to think of guys that could potentially be available. I think a lot of those pass rushers are going to get gobbled up early, but you have no idea. I mean, Kayvon Thibodeau, they're like, he could go in the top 5. He could also fall out of the top 10.
Wow.
And I could see him if he falls to 18. Something that I know that sounds crazy, but I could see Jerry say, hey, you know what? We've got a top 5 grade on this guy. Like, let's go up and get him. We lost Gregory. He can be a guy that can come in and help bolster that defensive line. So those are kind of the 3 areas that I'm looking at. And it's just going to kind of depend who falls. Cause the thing that's tough, a lot of teams have multiple picks. And so I don't think there'll be a ton of movement, but depending on where those quarterbacks go, if all 3 quarterbacks go ahead of them, I think they're going to find a really good player.
Wow. Yeah. So the last few things here, our team is part of this foundation. It's called the Hugh Jackson Foundation. He's a former NFL coach. He's now at the head coach at Graveling State University. We're trying to help him prevent human trafficking, making sure the community stays safe, the kids stay safe. So we'll send you the foundation to you and your wife so you can go check it out.
Oh, that'd be fantastic. I mean, that's a real deal. That's something that obviously needs to be taken care of, and hopefully, it's a devastating thing. So thank you for being a part of that, bringing awareness to human trafficking, so that we can obviously give people safely to where they need to ultimately go, and give them safe homes, and that won't happen anymore.
Yeah. And the last thing here, would you like to say anything to all the nurses, doctors, and all the essential workers right now?
Oh goodness. I mean, listen, people that essential workers, people that have been out there, working on the front lines for the last 2 years. It's a thankless job. I'm the worst when I deal with nurses. The athletes historically are just the worst patients because they don't like to be, have surgery. They don't like to feel like, be incapacitated, not be able to move and get around. And so I look at all that and I see all these people that are working all these long shifts and everything that's happened. And it's awesome to see that in our country. The fact that, essential workers realizing they're a vital part to our society, to everything that they do. And, just really appreciate all of them. I would not have been able to play as long as I had been if it wasn't for the awesome care, of some frontline workers, doctors, nurses, and everything. So appreciate all of them for everything that they've done over the last 2 years, and everything that some of the people have done for me over the course of my career as well.
And tell our fans where they can find you on social media.
All right, so Twitter is bcarp3. I'm on Instagram at Bobby Carpenter with the Roman numeral 3 afterwards. I've got Carps Corner set up on YouTube, pushing some stuff out there. So that's kind of it. And I got my local radio show here in Columbus. I do a ton of work with XM as well, and some stuff with Outkick and Fox. So it's a busy time with the 4 kids, but try to enjoy this week. Thursday night to me I do a 6:00 morning show, so it's an early call, but I love to stay up for the draft because it's like, it's people call it the Christmas of the NFL. There's something for everybody. No one loses a game, and there's always so much movement, and it's always so entertaining.
Yeah, so there it is. That wraps up episode 1007 with former Ohio State NFL linebacker Bobby Carpenter. Man, thank you again for joining the show on late notice. This was truly an honor. Thank you again, and thank you to our fans for tuning in and asking great questions to Bobby. And first of all, we would love to have you back on the show down the line so you can meet the full team. But keep up the great work, man, with your show. And obviously enjoy the draft. And hopefully the Cowboys get someone good. But thank you again.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for making this work out. Like I said, I'm sorry we got a million kids rolling around, dude. Whenever I can squeeze this thing in. So we'll get this going again. Maybe in the spring or summer we got a little more time. And get into some more great stories and some other
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it.